No one warned the new Omega healer never to touch the cursed patient. She healed the Alpha King first. Hello, everyone. On Claire Whitmore's first morning at Blackwood Royal Infirmary, she opened a door secured by 3 silver locks and heard a stranger in the darkness say, "Whatever you do, stay away from me." She should have listened. But Claire had spent her life moving toward people in pain when everyone else stepped back. If stories about courage, compassion, and destiny speak to you, subscribe and tap the notification bell to help our channel grow. Now back to Claire. 6 hours earlier, the 23-year-old Omega had stood beneath the infirmary's stone archway with one hand curled around the silver willow necklace her mother had left her. Blackwood was nothing like the small provincial clinic where Claire had learned to set broken bones and soothe frightened children. Healers in dark green uniforms crossed polished corridors with brisk confidence. Here, everyone seemed to know exactly where they belonged. Claire was still trying to convince herself that she belonged at all. Claire Whitmore. A blonde woman carrying a ledger approached. Madeline Brooks. Senior healer. You're with me until Dr. Mercer decides you're safe around expensive medicine. Claire blinked. Madeline almost smiled. That was a joke. Mostly. As they walked, Madeline explained emergency bells, treatment rooms, medication protocols, and the strict hierarchy of the royal staff. Claire listened carefully. She needed this position. More than that, she wanted to prove that an Omega healer from a small pack could offer something beyond the gentle bedside work people expected from women like her. Royal healing is controlled, Madeline said as they reached a quieter passage. We don't rely on instinct. We assess, then act. Claire glanced at her hands. Instinct was how she had always understood suffering. Her mother used to tell her that gentle hands could hear what frightened hearts could not say. Claire had learned long ago not to repeat that around physicians who preferred measurable answers. Madeline pointed toward a narrow northern hallway. Her expression became serious. There's one corridor you never enter without. An emergency bell shrieked twice. Madeline spun toward the sound. A young attendant appeared at the intersection. Carriage accident. 3 patients incoming. Trauma ward. Madeline shoved the ledger into Claire's arms. Find Elsie Hart. Stay with her until I come back. Then she disappeared into the sudden rush of healers. Claire found Elsie in the supply room, a small silver-haired woman directing attendants with military efficiency. Neither woman realized Claire's orientation had stopped one sentence too soon. For the next hour, Claire carried bandages, warmed saline, and tinctures wherever Elsie sent her. Then Elsie placed a tray holding fever tonic into her hands. Northern Hall. Last room. Claire hesitated. Madeline was telling me something about that corridor before the emergency. Elsie barely looked up from her inventory sheet. She completed your restricted wing briefing, didn't she? I'm not sure. Someone called from the trauma ward. Elsie turned toward the voice. Patient 13 needs the tonic. Set it inside and come straight back, dear. Claire started to ask another question, but Elsie was already gone. The northern passage seemed to swallow the noise behind her. 12 doors passed beneath the muted glow of wall lamps. At the end stood a 13th, made of heavy black wood. 3 silver locks hung open beside its frame. Deep scratches marked the lower panels. Claire slowed. Madeline's unfinished warning returned to her. There's one corridor you never enter without. She should go back. Find someone. Ask what the sentence had been meant to say. Then something crashed behind the door. A chain scraped violently across stone. A man made a sound Claire knew too well, the strangled breath of someone trying not to cry out. Training overruled hesitation. She pushed the door inward. One lamp burned in the otherwise dim chamber. Across the room, a large man sat against the wall, his wrists secured by silver restraints. Black hair clung damply to his forehead. Blood ran from beneath one cuff. Under the open collar of his shirt, dark branching marks stained his skin like smoke trapped beneath glass. His head lifted, silver-gray eyes locked onto hers. You're new. Claire tightened her grip on the tray. Claire Whitmore. I brought your medicine. Alarm crossed his exhausted face. Leave it and go. Another tremor tore through him. His injured wrist twisted against the restraint, opening the wound farther. Claire set down the tray. You're bleeding. That is not what you should be worried about. His voice had changed. Not threatening. Afraid. Claire took one careful step nearer. The chain tightened as he deliberately moved away from her. Please, he said. The word stopped her more effectively than any command could have. This powerful stranger was not asking her to save him. He was asking her to save herself. Then the dark markings crept higher along his throat, and Claire understood only one thing with certainty. Whatever Madeline had been about to warn her never to do, she had just walked into the room where that warning mattered most. Claire stayed where she was. The stranger's warning should have sent her back into the corridor, yet the fear in his voice made leaving feel less like obedience and more like abandonment. "What am I supposed to be worried about?" she asked. "Me." Another tremor passed through his shoulders. "That's not an answer." His gaze sharpened despite his exhaustion. "It's the only one you need." Claire glanced at the fever tonic, then at the bottles lining a nearby cabinet. Several appeared untouched. Others bore dates stretching back months. Whatever afflicted patient 13 was not new, and whatever they had been giving him clearly had not solved it. "How long have you had the fever?" "It isn't a fever." "Then tell me what it is." A faint, almost incredulous expression crossed his face. Do all new healers interrogate their patients? Only the difficult ones. For a moment, something in him eased. Then his entire body locked. His breath caught, and the dark tracery beneath his collar spread toward his neck. Claire stepped forward instinctively. "Don't." The force in his voice stopped her. He turned his face away as though ashamed to let her watch. "Put the medicine down and leave." "Does it help?" "No." Claire looked again at the rows of remedies. "Then why do they keep sending it?" "Because routine is comforting when answers are not." There was no bitterness in the words now, only weariness. Claire set the cup aside instead of offering it. "What helps?" His eyes met hers. "Being left alone." That answer hurt more than she expected. Nobody should have to be sick alone. "You don't know what I have." "Because nobody has told me." His expression changed. "What exactly did they tell you before sending you here?" Claire remembered Madeline's unfinished sentence and Elsie's distracted question. "Almost nothing." For the first time, genuine alarm replaced his guarded calm. "They didn't brief you?" Before Claire could answer, a violent spasm folded him forward. The restraint snapped tight, cutting deeper into his wrist. He bit back a cry. Claire moved toward him. "Stay there. You're reopening the wound." "Forget the wound. I'm a healer. I don't forget bleeding because a patient tells me to." "Then be a healer somewhere else." Claire stared at him. Beneath the harshness, she heard desperation. He was not trying to intimidate her. He was trying to make her afraid enough to survive whatever came next. "I'm getting Dr. Mercer." She hurried into the hallway. "Hello." No response. Far beyond the northern wing, another emergency bell rang, followed by hurried footsteps too distant to reach her. Claire tried the nearest wall bell. She pulled once. Nothing. Again. Silence. She searched a treatment station, but without a diagnosis or chart she refused to guess at medication. A heavy crash came from patient 13's room. Claire ran back. The cup had shattered. He was on one knee, one hand braced against the floor. Blood streamed from the silver cuff. The strange markings had reached his jaw. His eyes lifted, and for an instant an unnatural brightness moved through their gray depths. "Why did you come back?" "Because no one else is here." "Then find someone. You may not have time." His fingers dug into the stone. "Neither will you if you stay." Claire's heartbeat quickened. "What does that mean?" He struggled upright, deliberately retreating until the chains prevented him from going farther. "Open the door. Walk out. Do not come back until this passes." Another surge hit him. The sound he made was low and raw, yet he still kept himself pressed against the opposite wall. Claire suddenly understood the strangest thing about the room. The restraints were not protecting him from other people. He believed they were protecting other people from him. His knees buckled. Claire crossed half the distance before he barked, "Stop." She did. "Please," he added, barely audible. Blood slid over his palm. Claire thought of her mother's hands closing around hers years ago. Pain makes people push you away when they need kindness most. She could still leave. Every sensible instinct told her to. But the healer in her could not watch a man injure himself, while help remained somewhere beyond an unanswered bell. Claire stepped closer. Patient 13 stared at her approaching hand, and terror entered his face. "Claire, listen to me." Her fingers hovered above his injured wrist. "If you touch me," he whispered, "the curse can touch you too." Claire's fingers froze above his wrist. "The curse can pass to me?" Patient 13 struggled for breath. "During an episode, anyone who touches me becomes a path for it." The answer should have ended her hesitation. Instead, another pull against the silver cuff opened his wound farther. Has that happened before? She asked. His silence was enough. How many people? Enough that you should leave. His voice softened despite the strain. You have nothing to prove by getting hurt for a stranger. Claire felt the truth of that. She was frightened, not of appearing weak, but of making one reckless decision that could end the career she had fought to begin. Yet the man before her was spending precious strength protecting someone whose name he had learned only minutes ago. Another wave seized him. His shoulder struck the wall, and a harsh growl escaped before he could suppress it. The black markings climbed beneath his jaw. Claire looked toward the empty doorway. Help was not coming quickly enough. If I do nothing, what happens? It passes. Your wrist may not. Claire, tell me how to help without touching you. He closed his eyes. You can't. There it was. Not permission. Not a request. Simply the truth. Claire made her choice. Then forgive me. She caught his forearm. Pain tore through her so violently that the room vanished. Her breath disappeared. Darkness raced beneath her fingers, carrying sensations that were not hers. Burning muscle, splintering bone, a suffocating pressure that seemed to have lived inside him far longer than any body should endure. Patient 13 jerked away. Let go. Claire nearly did. Then she felt something beneath the agony. His heartbeat. Strong. Controlled. Fighting to remain itself. She tried what Blackwood healers had taught her, pushing restorative energy toward the damaged places. The curse struck back. A brutal pulse traveled up her arm, blurring her sight. She gasped and stopped forcing it. Her mother's voice returned from years ago, quiet as memory. Gentle hands can hear what frightened hearts cannot say. Claire stopped trying to conquer the pain. She listened to it. The violent current moved in uneven waves, tightening whenever she resisted and loosening when she yielded around it. Breathe with me, she whispered. Claire, you don't understand what this is. Neither do you, or you wouldn't still be chained to a wall. His eyes flashed with startled offense. Under different circumstances, she might have apologized. Instead, she placed her free palm against the center of his chest. The reaction was immediate. Darkness surged toward their joined hands. Claire cried out as fragments brushed the edge of her awareness. Firelight, silver metal, a flash of unbearable heat, a voice she could not identify. She refused to follow them. Whatever had happened to him belonged to another day. Right now, there was only the man beneath her hand. Stay with me. His breathing faltered. I'm trying. Those 3 words broke something open in her. Not magic. Understanding. He had been trying for longer than she could imagine. Claire followed the steady rhythm beneath the chaos and guided the pain along it, not pulling the darkness into herself, not attacking it, simply giving the suffering somewhere to move that was not deeper into him. Slowly, impossibly, the pressure changed. The markings retreated from his jaw. His clenched fingers loosened. The unnatural brightness disappeared from his eyes. Then the room became still. Patient 13 stared at Claire as if stillness were more frightening than pain. What did you do? I don't know. His lips parted. It stopped. The words carried such disbelief that Claire's throat tightened. His body sagged. She caught his shoulder and lowered him carefully against the wall. Sir. His eyes closed. Claire found his pulse and almost laughed with relief. Deep. Even. He was not unconscious. He was sleeping. Footsteps thundered toward the room. Dr. Nathaniel Mercer entered first, followed by Madeline and a broad-shouldered guard Captain Claire had never seen. All 3 stopped at the threshold. Madeline's face drained of color. The captain's hand moved toward his weapon. Nathaniel stared at Claire's bare hand resting against patient 13's skin, then at the dark markings fading beneath the man's collar. Step away from him, he said. Claire slowly obeyed. Nathaniel crossed the room and checked the sleeping patient. His expression shifted from alarm to something Claire could not name. Tell me exactly what happened. His episode worsened. The bell didn't work. He was bleeding, No, Nathaniel looked directly at her. Tell me you did not touch him. Claire glanced at the man who had finally found rest. I did. For several seconds, no one spoke. Then Nathaniel looked down at patient 13's steady pulse and whispered, almost to himself, that should not be possible. Nathaniel's disbelief lasted only a second. Claire, show me your hands. She held them out. He examined her palms, wrists, then pushed her sleeves toward her elbows. Burning? Numbness? Hearing anything that isn't there. No headache. Weakness. I'm tired. Graham Holloway, the guard captain, stepped between Claire and the sleeping patient. The movement was controlled, protective. Doctor, remove her from this room. I'm standing right here, Claire said. Graham's dark blue eyes settled on her. And until we know what crossed into you, that may be the problem. Madeline gently touched Claire's elbow. Come. With me. They moved her to an examination room across the corridor. Nathaniel followed and closed the door. Claire waited until he finished checking her pulse. How many? His hand paused. How many people were hurt touching him? Nathaniel's expression hardened with an old regret. 7 healers made direct contact during severe episodes. 4 carried curse burns for months. 2 permanently lost part of their healing ability. He looked away. 1 almost died. Claire's stomach tightened. And I was sent into his room without knowing any of that. You were never supposed to be. But I was. Nathaniel drew a slow breath. Madeline was responsible for your orientation. She was about to explain the northern corridor when the trauma bell rang. Elsie thought she had finished. The pieces settled across his face. Not negligence from one person, but 2 assumptions colliding at exactly the wrong moment. And the emergency bell inside his wing. Claire asked. It didn't work. Nathaniel's eyes sharpened. You're certain? I pulled it twice. He opened the door and called for an attendant to inspect it. When he returned, some of his anger had disappeared. You should never have been placed in that situation. Claire thought of patient 13 forcing himself away from her. He tried harder than anyone else to warn me. Before Nathaniel could respond, Madeline entered carrying a chart. Her usual composure was gone. You need to see this. They returned to the patient's chamber. Graham stood beside the bed while an attendant repaired the damaged cuff. Patient 13 had not moved. Claire's concern must have shown because Madeline said, He's sleeping. Actually sleeping. Nathaniel checked his chest. The branching darkness that had nearly reached his jaw was now concentrated near his sternum, visibly reduced. Madeline handed over the chart. Temperature down 4 degrees. Heart rhythm normal. No muscle spasms. The lesions along his ribs are closing. Nathaniel read the figures twice. Run them again. I already did. Claire approached only as far as Graham allowed. Is that unusual? 3 faces turned toward her. Madeline answered quietly. We haven't seen this. Much improvement in 4 years. Claire looked at the sleeping man differently. For years inside this room, surrounded by remedies that could not give him what one forbidden touch somehow had. Graham folded his arms. What did you do? At first, what I was trained to do. I pushed healing energy toward the damage. And? Nathaniel asked. It fought me. So I stopped trying to overpower it. Claire searched for language precise enough for him. I followed his heartbeat. The pain loosened when I worked with his body instead of against whatever was inside it. Nathaniel stared at her. You redirected the suffering without absorbing it. I think so. That technique hasn't been recorded in active practice for generations. Claire's fingers moved unconsciously toward the willow pendant beneath her collar. Its metal felt warmer than it should. She released it before anyone noticed. Graham turned to Nathaniel. This stays inside the infirmary. Claire frowned. Why would his recovery need to be secret? Because patient 13's identity and condition are protected matters, Graham replied. You need to know nothing beyond his treatment. I wasn't assigned to his treatment. Nathaniel closed the chart. And until we understand what happened, you won't be. The decision surprised Claire with how much it hurt. Then who helps him if it happens again? Nobody answered. She was escorted to an empty consultation room and told to wait. Afternoon faded toward evening. Claire began preparing herself to be dismissed when the door opened. Graham stood outside. Come with me. Am I losing my position? No. Am I under arrest? His brow lifted. Also no. He led her back to the northern wing, where Nathaniel and Madeline waited beside the final door. He woke 20 minutes ago, Nathaniel said. Claire's relief came quickly. Is he stable? More stable than he has been in years. Then why am I here? Nathaniel opened the door. Patient 13 sat upright on the bed, unchained for the moment, his gaze already fixed on Claire. Because, Nathaniel said, after 4 years of refusing nearly everyone who tried to treat him, he asked for one healer by name. Patient 13 looked directly at her. Claire Whitmore, he said. Come in. Come in. Claire stepped across the threshold, aware that Nathaniel, Madeline, and Graham remained behind her. Patient 13 looked different without pain twisting every feature. Still exhausted, still guarded, but present in a way he had not been before. You asked for me. I asked for the healer who gave me 4 quiet hours. Nathaniel moved beside her. We don't know whether her intervention caused the improvement or whether repeating it is safe. Then we learn. The patient looked at Claire. If she agrees. That mattered. Everyone else had spent the day deciding where Claire could go, what she could know, and what risks were acceptable for her. The man with the least freedom in the building was the first to leave the decision in her hands. Nathaniel explained the danger plainly. Repeated contact might expose her to cumulative effects, and no one knew why the curse had failed to mark her permanently. Claire listened until he finished. If I say yes, I set the conditions. Patient 13's eyebrow lifted. Name them. No hiding symptoms. No ordering me away because you think you know what I can endure. And if I say we stop, we stop. A faint smile touched his mouth. Agreed. Then I stay. The words closed a door behind her. Over the next several hours, Nathaniel supervised brief sessions while Madeline recorded every change. Claire discovered the curse reacted badly to force, but softened when she matched the patient's breathing and pulse. Between treatments, she began noticing the man beneath the diagnosis. Once, distant wolves called from the forest beyond the infirmary windows. His attention drifted toward the sound. You missed them, Claire said. Running, he answered after a pause. I haven't shifted freely in 4 years. The admission carried no self-pity, which somehow made it sadder. 4 years is a long time to lose part of yourself. His gaze returned to her. You understand that. Claire touched the willow pendant at her throat. I understand what it is to have people decide what you are before you get to show them. Because you're an Omega. Because they think Omega means fragile. He glanced at the hand that had survived his curse. They may need to revise their definition. Warmth rose unexpectedly in her chest. Later, Claire rested 2 fingers against his pulse. Her necklace heated against her skin. She withdrew. What happened? He asked. I'm not sure. Before she could examine the pendant, the doors opened. Counselor Warren Caldwell entered in a charcoal coat, his silver hair immaculate. Graham straightened immediately. Nathaniel did not. Counselor. Warren's gaze moved across the room and settled on Claire. So this is the new Omega healer. Claire Whitmore, she corrected. Of course. He approached with polished courtesy. As Claire shifted, the willow pendant slipped free of her collar. Warren's eyes touched it for less than a second. His step stopped. Then he smiled. Family piece. The question sounded casual. Claire covered the leaf instinctively. It was my mother's. Was she a healer as well? In her own way. Interesting. He turned toward Nathaniel before Claire could ask why. Across the bed, however, patient 13 was watching Warren with narrowed eyes. He had noticed the pause too. I understand Miss Whitmore performed an unauthorized procedure, Warren said. She interrupted an episode, Nathaniel replied. With measurable improvement. One fortunate result does not justify gambling with a dangerous condition. Warren faced Claire. Your involvement ends tonight. That isn't your decision, patient 13 said. Warren's pleasant expression cooled. In your present condition, there are decisions others must make for you. The air changed. Claire felt an old hostility beneath the words. She stays, the patient said. And when the next episode kills her? Warren asked. Silence followed. Claire felt the question land because it was not impossible. Patient 13 looked at her, and when he spoke, his voice was quiet. He's right about one thing. You could walk away now. Do you want me to? His jaw tightened. What I want is irrelevant if the cost is your life. That wasn't my question. For several seconds, he said nothing. No, he admitted. I don't want you to go. The honesty reached her more deeply than any command could have. Claire looked at Nathaniel. I'm continuing. Warren's gaze hardened, but she no longer cared. She reached toward patient 13's wrist. Before contact, the willow pendant warmed sharply against her chest. Claire paused. Across the room, Warren's attention flickered toward it again. Patient 13 saw that too. This time, neither man pretended otherwise. Claire's hand remained suspended above patient 13's wrist. The willow pendant had cooled again, but Warren's brief reaction to it stayed with her. You asked about my mother, she said. Why? Warren adjusted one cuff. Courtesy, Miss Whitmore. Nothing more. You didn't look curious, patient 13 said. You looked surprised. Warren's smile thinned. Pain medication appears to have sharpened your imagination. Nathaniel stepped between them. Enough. If Claire is continuing treatment, I need the room calm. Warren moved toward the door. Then I suggest keeping old superstitions out of medicine. Nathaniel's attention shifted to the silver leaf. Old. Warren stopped. Only for a heartbeat. It looks old. He left without another word. Graham watched the door close, then quietly stationed himself outside it. Claire turned to Nathaniel. Have you seen this symbol before? He studied the pendant without touching it. Perhaps. I'd need the archives before saying more. Patient 13 extended his hand. One mystery at a time. Claire placed 2 fingers against his pulse. The connection opened gently, but something had changed. Beneath the familiar ache, she sensed a repeating current, almost like a river forced through the same narrow channels. There, she whispered. What? Madeline asked. Claire closed her eyes. The curse isn't spreading wherever it wants. It keeps returning to the same places. A wave of heat moved through the patient. Claire followed it without resisting. For an instant, impressions flashed at the edge of her awareness. Fire, silver metal, the impact of something entering flesh. She pulled away. This didn't begin inside you. Silence answered her. Patient 13 looked toward Nathaniel. The doctor slowly closed his chart. 4 years ago, he survived an assassination attempt. The weapon carried a curse. Every physical fragment was removed, but whatever magic remained could not be extracted. Claire stared at her patient. Someone did this to you. Yes. Were they caught? No, his answer was flat, but she felt the years beneath it. Before she could ask more, the doors opened again. Warren returned with 2 guards. Miss Whitmore's access is revoked. Nathaniel frowned. On what grounds? Her intervention remains unauthorized, and her continued contact now involves matters of royal security. Royal. Claire caught the word. So did Madeline. Patient 13's expression hardened. She stays. You are not presently empowered to make that determination. Warren nodded to the guards. Escort her out. One guard reached for Claire. Patient 13 rose from the bed. It was the first time she had seen him stand without immediately collapsing. Even weakened, he seemed too large for the room. Don't touch her. Warren faced him. Sit down before you worsen your condition. The command carried an intimacy Claire did not understand. Something old between them, sharpened by years of resentment. Then patient 13 flinched. Claire saw the darkness surge across his collarbone. Warren stopped himself. Claire heard it anyway. The patient doubled over. Nathaniel rushed forward, but a violent pulse drove him back. The lamps guttered. Graham entered with his sword half drawn. Everyone away from him. Warren pointed at Claire. This began after she resumed contact. Remove the Omega. A guard seized her arm. Patient 13 lifted his head. His eyes had turned brilliant silver. Release her. The guard hesitated. Counselor Caldwell ordered. The chain still hanging from one of the patient's restraints snapped taut as he stepped forward. With a single wrench, he tore its anchor from the stone wall. Dust scattered across the floor. Yet instead of attacking, he placed himself between Claire and the guards. I gave you an order. Graham looked at him, then lowered his sword. To Claire's astonishment, the captain dropped to one knee. Madeline's breath caught. Nathaniel bowed his head. Both guards immediately released Claire and knelt. Warren remained standing, his face suddenly bloodless. Claire looked from the bowed royal guard to the man who had spent 4 years hidden behind a number. Pieces she had ignored began fitting together. The secrecy, the protected records, Warren's authority, Graham's vigilance, the patient's effortless expectation of obedience. Who are you? She whispered. He turned toward her. Pain still burned across his features, but there was no hiding left in his eyes. Nathaniel answered for him. King Everett Blackwood. Claire's breath stopped. The Alpha King. Everett held her gaze as the truth changed everything between them. I wanted you to know me, he said quietly, before you knew what everyone else calls me. For several seconds, Claire could only stare at him. King Everett Blackwood, the man she had ordered to breathe, argued with about medicine, and touched before she knew a crown stood behind patient 13. Everett held her gaze. You should have told me. Yes. No defense. No royal excuse. Somehow, that made her anger easier to carry. Why didn't you? Because people stop seeing me once they see the king. His voice lowered. You saw the patient first. A tremor cut through him before Claire could answer. Darkness stirred beneath his collar. His identity had changed everything between them, but nothing about what was killing him. Claire stepped closer. Then we finish what we started. Nathaniel turned toward the treatment table. Claire said the curse keeps returning through established pathways. We need the original assassination records. Warren's expression tightened. Those files are sealed. Graham faced him. By whom? A pause. By my authority. The attack involved matters of state security. Everett's silver-gray eyes hardened. Open them. Warren began to object. Now. An hour later, Nathaniel returned carrying an iron archive case. Madeline spread 4 years of reports across the table while Claire compared dates, wound diagrams, medication schedules, and recorded episodes. One substance kept appearing beside Everett's worst declines. Silver ash, Madeline said. A shifting suppressant. Claire traced 3 separate charts. His episodes became worse after the dosage increased. Nathaniel pulled another report closer. Then another. 3 major deteriorations, he murmured, each within days of an increase. Graham leaned over the records. Who approved them? Madeline turned the pages. Warren Caldwell's signature appeared beneath every order. Warren remained composed. His Majesty's wolf had become increasingly unstable. The treatment was medically justified. By what evidence? Claire asked. Evidence gathered long before you arrived. Then show us. Nathaniel was already searching the earliest reports. Suddenly, he stopped. The weapon. Everyone looked at him. He lifted the post-assassination analysis. Silver ash was found in the blade residue. Claire felt the pieces locked together. You were treating him with the same substance that entered his body when he was cursed. That proves nothing, Warren said. Madeline opened a laboratory folder. It proves more than you think. She placed 2 blood analyses beside Everett's charts. Curse activity rose whenever silver ash concentration increased. Graham drew another document from the case, and the investigation was closed 6 days after Counselor Caldwell assumed oversight of the king's treatment. Silence tightened around Warren. Everett's voice came quietly. Did you arrange the assassination? No, Warren answered without hesitation. Claire believed him, and suddenly understood something worse. But afterward, you discovered what the silver ash could do. Warren looked at her. You learned it could keep waking the curse. Nathaniel stared at the orders in his hands. I administered those doses. His voice cracked. For years. Claire touched his arm. You trusted records someone deliberately corrupted. Warren's mouth curved without warmth. Everyone performed the role required of them. Everett went utterly still. Including you? Warren's polished restraint finally fractured. Someone had to govern while you became less capable of governing yourself. Graham's hand settled on his sword. You prolonged an attack against the crown. I prevented a collapsing king from taking the realm down with him. Everett studied the man who had helped keep him chained for 4 years. You didn't need me dead. Warren said nothing. Claire finished the truth for him. You needed him sick enough that everyone would accept you making decisions for him. Defeat flickered across Warren's face. His gaze dropped to Claire's willow pendant, then returned to Everett. And now an Omega with an old healer's trinket has convinced you 4 years of corruption can simply disappear. His hand slipped inside his coat. Graham's sword cleared its sheath. Don't. Warren withdrew a small black vial. Nathaniel turned white. Concentrated silver ash. Graham advanced. Warren held the vial above the floor. If she truly healed you, Your Majesty, there should be nothing left for this to awaken. Everett moved, not toward Warren, but toward Claire. He was shielding her. Graham lunged. Warren released the vial. Glass shattered. Metallic vapor erupted across the chamber. Everett screamed. Darkness exploded beneath his skin, racing over his chest and throat. His body struck a column hard enough to fracture stone. Graham drove Warren to the floor, while Madeline pulled Nathaniel clear of the vapor. Claire ran toward Everett. Stay back, Nathaniel shouted. Everett collapsed onto his hands. Bones shifted beneath his skin as his wolf fought violently for control. His claws gouged the stone. He lifted his head and found Claire through eyes flooding with silver light. Go. One word. The same choice he had made from the beginning. Protect her before himself. Then recognition began disappearing. Nathaniel caught Claire's arm. That dose activated every remaining trace. If you connect with him now, the curse may use you as its only escape. Claire looked at the man who had spent 4 years imprisoned because others decided fear justified taking away his choices. This time, no warning had been withheld. She knew exactly what touching him might cost. Slowly, Claire unclasped her mother's willow necklace and wound the chain around her palm. Then she looked at Nathaniel. "I'm not asking you to stop me." Her eyes returned to Everett. "I'm asking you to help me bring him back." Claire wrapped the willow chain around her palm and looked at Nathaniel. "Tell me what you can see while I'm connected to him. Madeline, watch my pulse. If I lose consciousness, pull me away." Nathaniel stared at her. "Claire, that may not be enough." "I know." She turned to Everett. His half-shifted body trembled near the fractured column, claws cutting grooves into stone. Darkness coursed beneath his skin while silver light consumed his eyes. Yet he had not attacked anyone. Even now, some part of him was fighting to remain between Claire and the danger inside himself. "Everett." A growl answered. Claire approached slowly, keeping her hands visible. "You told me to leave the first time because I didn't know the risk." His head jerked toward her voice. "Now I know." Another step, and I'm still here. He lunged, not at her, but sideways, driving his claws into the floor as if physically forcing himself away. Claire's throat tightened. "That's you." "I know it is." She reached him and pressed her wrapped palm against his chest. Pain swallowed her whole. Claire dropped to one knee. The curse rushed toward the connection, harsher than before, searching for resistance. Black traces appeared across her wrist. "Claire." Madeline caught her shoulder. "Pulse is climbing. Don't break contact." Claire forced herself to breathe. She could feel the old pathways now. Every place silver ash had repeatedly awakened the corruption. Her first instinct was to draw it away from Everett. She stopped herself. That was what Nathaniel had warned against. If she became the only destination, the curse would simply trade one body for another. "Everett, I need you." His claws flexed. No recognition. Claire pressed closer. "I cannot heal this for you. You have to come back and help me." The darkness surged. Beneath it, she searched for the rhythm she had found on their first day together. There. Faint. His heartbeat. "Follow me." Everett's breathing hitched. "You are not the curse. Your wolf is not the curse. Stop fighting each other." His massive hand struck the floor beside hers. The impact cracked stone, but he did not touch her. "Everett." Claire's voice broke. "Choose yourself." His fingers slowly curled. Then his hand closed around hers with astonishing care. "Claire." One human word emerged from the growl. Nathaniel inhaled sharply. "The markings are reversing." Everett bowed his head. Instead of forcing his wolf down, he let the shift complete enough for the two halves of himself to move together. Claire felt the change immediately. The curse lost the conflict it had fed upon for 4 years. She guided its current outward while Everett denied it a place to anchor. The willow leaf burned against her palm, not giving her strength, but reminding her how she had always healed. Listen first. Never overpower pain simply because it frightened you. "Again," Claire whispered. Everett tightened his grip. Together they followed the corrupted pathways back toward their source. A sharp cracking sound moved through the chamber. Darkness lifted from Everett's chest like smoke, gathered around their joined hands, then collapsed into gray ash. Claire pitched forward. Everett caught her before she hit the floor. For several breaths, nobody spoke. Nathaniel reached them first and pulled open Everett's shirt. The branching marks were gone. Madeline examined Claire's wrist. The traces there were already fading. His pulse. Claire whispered. Nathaniel checked, then looked up with wet eyes. Normal. Everett's body returned fully to human form. He stared at his hands as though they belonged to someone he had almost forgotten. Then he drew one deep breath. No spasm followed. Another. Still nothing. "How does it feel?" Claire asked. Everett looked at her. Quiet. Behind them, Graham hauled Warren upright in iron restraints. Nathaniel collected fragments of the shattered vial. "The catalyst matches the silver ash residue documented in the assassination evidence," he said. "Along with the altered treatment orders and sealed investigation, this ends any question of what Caldwell did." Warren said nothing as Graham led him away. Everett barely watched. His attention remained on Claire. "You could have died. So could you. You knew that this time." Claire opened her hand. The willow pendant rested against her palm, dulled by ash but intact. "Yes." Something in Everett's face gave way. Not authority, not gratitude, but the loneliness she had seen before she knew his name. He lifted his hand toward her cheek, then stopped short. Claire noticed the hesitation. He would not touch her without permission, even now. She leaned into his palm. His eyes closed briefly. By dawn, Nathaniel had repeated every examination twice. The curse was not dormant. It was gone. Madeline replaced Claire's temporary identification badge with one bearing the Blackwood seal, granting her continued Royal Wing access while Nathaniel prepared his formal recommendation. Claire found Everett at an open window, watching wolves run along the distant tree line. For the first time, there were no chains behind him. He heard her approach and turned. "There's something I should have told you before you ever chose to stay," he said. Claire waited. Everett looked down at the hand she had taken twice. First without knowing, then knowing everything. "I felt it the first time you touched me." Everett's words remained between them in the quiet of morning. "I felt it the first time you touched me." Claire studied him. "Felt what?" His silver-gray eyes held hers. "My wolf recognized you." Her breath caught. "The mate bond." "Yes." Claire looked away for a moment, remembering every warning, every argument, every time he had given her the chance to leave. "You knew all this time." "I knew what my wolf believed." Everett stepped closer, but stopped beyond her reach. "I did not know what you would choose. You could have told me." "I should have." His expression tightened. "But you entered this place surrounded by people who knew things you didn't. The danger of my curse, my identity, the rules of this wing. I would not become another man who kept information from you and then used it to control your future." Claire's anger softened, though it did not disappear entirely. "So you let me order the Alpha King to breathe." The corner of his mouth lifted. "Repeatedly. And argue with you. Relentlessly." She almost smiled. Then Everett opened his hand between them. "Claire, a bond is not consent. Fate may tell my wolf who you are. It does not tell you whom to love." The words reached deeper than any declaration could have. "What happens now?" she asked. "Whatever you decide." 3 days later, the Royal Council gathered beneath Blackwood's stone crest. Graham presented Warren Caldwell's altered treatment orders, the sealed assassination records, laboratory reports linking Everett's deterioration to increased silver ash, and the remains of the vial Warren had shattered. Nathaniel testified that the evidence showed a deliberate pattern. Warren had not created the Ashen Curse or ordered the original attack, but after discovering how silver ash reactivated its residue, he had prolonged Everett's illness and buried the investigation while council authority expanded. Warren was stripped of office and remanded for trial. When Nathaniel began accepting blame for administering the treatments, Everett stopped him. "You acted on records deliberately corrupted by someone you trusted. Responsibility belongs to the person who knowingly made the choice." Nathaniel bowed his head, and Claire saw some of the burden leave his face. Everett did not dismiss the chamber. "Claire Whitmore." Every eye turned toward her. Claire walked forward beside Madeline, wearing the temporary Blackwood access badge she had been given after the curse broke. Nathaniel held a permanent healer insignia in his palm. "Your methods require study," he said, "and I expect you'll challenge half of mine." "Only half," Madeline murmured. Claire almost laughed. Nathaniel placed the insignia in her hand. "By demonstrated merit, Claire Whitmore is hereby appointed royal healer." Everett addressed the council. "She does not stand here because she is my mate. She stands here because she saw a suffering patient where others saw a threat, questioned what had failed for years, and saved my life." Claire closed her fingers around the insignia. No one had elevated an Omega because a king desired her. She had earned her place before the bond ever became hers to choose. In the weeks that followed, Nathaniel found the willow emblem in archived healer writings. The old tradition described attunement rather than force, listening to the body, guiding pain without trying to dominate it. The discovery gave a name to what Claire's mother had taught her, not a magical explanation that diminished Claire's choices. Blackwood changed too. The northern emergency bell was repaired. Restricted wing briefings required written confirmation. The silver restraints disappeared from Everett's former chamber, and no new healer would ever be sent toward danger because one person assumed another had delivered the warning. One autumn evening, Claire found Everett there beside an open window. Wolves called from the forest below. "Nathaniel cleared me to shift tomorrow," he said. "For years. And you're worried about one more night?" "I'm considering ignoring medical advice." "Then I'm reconsidering your clearance." Everett laughed. In his hand rested Claire's willow necklace, its damaged clasp repaired, the silver leaf polished clean of ash. With her nod, he fastened it around her neck. Then he stepped away. No curse remained. No wound demanded her hands. No king issued an order, and no mate bond required an answer. Everett simply offered his hand and waited. Claire looked at it. The first time she had touched him, no one had warned her. The second time, everyone had warned her, and she had chosen courage anyway. Now there was nothing left to heal. She placed her hand in his because she chose him. Warmth moved quietly through the bond. Everett's eyes softened. Still, he waited. Claire. She threaded her fingers through his. Yes. He lowered his forehead to hers as the wolves called again beyond the window. Tomorrow, Everett would run with them for the first time in 4 years. Tonight, he remained beside the woman who had first known him only as a cursed patient. Claire had arrived at Blackwood as a new Omega others expected to underestimate. She became the healer who listened when force had failed, the woman who returned choice to a king who had been denied his own, and finally the mate who chose him only when neither pain, power, nor destiny demanded that she stay.